page. A new study links brain network damage to increased religious fundamentalism. In a thing that I think anybody who is aware of the subject of, hey, is religion good or bad for you? If you have the opinion that religion is bad for you, like me, you would be like, this is not surprising, right? But I gotta say, a lot of people are, of course, going to be surprised by such a study. Let's read it. A new study published in Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences suggests that specific networks in the brain, when damaged, may influence the likelihood of developing religious fundamentalism. By analyzing patients with focal brain lesions, researchers found that damage to a particular network of brain regions, mainly in high right hemisphere, was associated with higher levels of fundamentalist beliefs. The finding provides new insight into the potential neural basis of religious fundamentalism, which has long been studied in psychology, but less so in neuroscience. I saw a TikTok of a guy talking about this, which is how I found out about this. And here, I'll show it to you. There's just something about knowing this was already a thing.
Amazing new study just came out that links brain network damage to increased religious fundamentalism. Listen. One of the main reasons why I'm going into neuropsychology is to prove this even further, because I believe this wholeheartedly, I just want to prove it scientifically.
And I agree too.
I believe that those of us who were raised in the faith, had brain damage from it and have had to neuroplastically heal our brains to come out of it.
But we know this is true because we know that depending on how you raise somebody, you can teach them. Your brain essentially, like he said, neuroplasticity. Your brain finds certain pathways that it uses regularly when it processes information, right? And through the more efficient use of these, you get smarter and smarter and smarter, and you kind of get use your brain more and your pathways. You use your brain in certain ways, and like a muscle, it will adapt to your use of it. And if you just have logic defeating thoughts all the time, and certain aspects of your brain are activated by religious thought, which we know is true, and this has happened. I mean, this is just yes, right? Of course. Here's a link to the actual article. You mean the abstract. The abstract of this: religious fundamentalism, characterized by rigid adherence to set of beliefs putatively revealing inerrant truths, is ubiquitous across cultures and has global impact on society. Understanding the psychological and neurobiological processes producing religious fundamentalism may inform a variety of scientific, sociological, and cultural questions. Research indicates that brain damage can alter religious fundamentalism. However, the precise brain regions involved with these change remain unknown. Here, we analyze brain lesions associated with varying levels of religious fundamentalism in two large datasets from independent laboratories. Lesions associated with greater fundamentalism were connected to a specific brain network with nodes in the right orbitofrontal, dorsolateral prefrontal, and inferior parietal lobes. This fundamentalism network was strongly right hemisphere lateralized and highly reproducible across independent datasets. Wow. With cross-validations between datasets. To explore the relationships of this network to lesions previously studied by our group, we tested for similarities to 21 lesion-associated conditions. Lesions associated with confabulation and criminal behavior showed a similar connectivity pattern as lesions associated with greater fundamentalism. Moreover, lesions associated with post-stroke pain showed a similar connectivity pattern as lesions associated with lower fundamentalism. These findings are consistent with the current understanding of hemispheric specializations for reasoning and lend insight into previously observed epidemiological. I said it right. Epidemiological. I thought it was just epidemiological, but yeah, it wouldn't make sense. Now I'm focused on how that word is made. Epidemiological associations with fundamentalism, such as cognitive rigidity and outgroup hostility. So anyway, they're finding that different lesions on the brain are associated with your fucking whole brain being fucked. Yeah. Acquired neurodivergence and damage can be caused by trauma in general, so religion, especially fundamentalist stuff, makes sense. Absolutely. Like, I think we all, like, on some level, we realize, like, hey, harming people, especially when their brains are quite plastic, when they're kids especially, has a really big effect on people, although any kind of, like, significant trauma can really fuck you up, right, at any age. But, like, so we know that the brain is, like, you could just fucking break somebody if the information they get is too traumatic, right? And so we realized, all of us, especially people that have left the church or have never been a part of it and just sort of see everything from the outside looking in. I mean, it's a deeply traumatic experience for pretty much everybody involved. Even assimilation involves the trauma of like having to like, you see these people fucking weep openly at the thought of like, gay marriage or something. This is a trauma. Like to be so hostile all the time to all the things that are not you and your shit is deeply, deeply fucking messes people up. Anyway, I think this is so fascinating.
I believe that fundamentalist Christians are brain damaging their children. And if it's not proven before I'm a neuropsychologist, god damn it, you fucking know I'm going to prove it.
I mean, good for you, man. Great to have character motivation. We read the abstract, so I'm wondering if any of this will give us any more insight into what's going on. Religious fundamentalism is a way of thinking and behaving characterized by rigid adherence to religious doctrines that are seen as absolute and inerrant. It's been linked to various cognitive traits such as authoritarianism, resistance to doubt, and lower complexity of thought. While much of the research on religious fundamentalism has focused on social and environmental factors such as family upbringing and cultural influence, there has been growing interest in the role of biology. Some studies have suggested that genetic factors or brain function may influence religiosity, but until now, very little research has looked at specific brain networks that could underlie fundamentalist thinking. I don't think that by a quirk of biology, there might be something in our brains that make us more prone to certain predilections. How I like chocolate or vanilla. Like maybe you just like fucking non-logic versus I don't know. There seems to be I don't know if it's an entirely learned behavior to be dissatisfied with lies or untruth or something, but like I personally just can't deal with it. I can't. I mean, I can stand it, but I mean, it irritates me to know. I was talking about this with Sarah before. Like, when you see something wrong, are you the type of person who sees something on a shelf at a store and it's fucked up? Do you fix it or do you walk by the store? And I don't mean like if it's like a big fucking problem that's not yours, but like something small. I always fix the little like if something's a little fucked up. I'll just like do a thing. I like looked to fix the fucking. There was at Michael's the other day, there was like a broken display, and I got my ass bending over looking how to fucking fix the thing. Like, Mormon Jesus. I don't know why I'm that way, but anyway, so a lot of it has to do with like a dissatisfaction in not knowing what the truth is. Gnome Pickles, thank you so much for the raid. I hope you're having a good one. You're literally a stalker. Well, great, yeah, dad coded. I guess I'm not really. I mean, I am that way around the house a little bit, but I'm not like a stickler for making sure things are precise or anything. I don't care. You can live where you're. I guess this isn't a living place, but anyway, I find a deep lack of curiosity and unwillingness to work with a group from religious fundamentalism and people, and the people that are taking part in it. And it's just like it's frustrating to watch people who you feel like should have the aptitude to sort of like process certain information about the reality of the world and like just have a reasonable opinion on what's going on, and just like nonetheless there are these blocks that just stop reason, and they foment this strange adherence to the religion, man. And then they take that and they move it on to other things, so then it obviously, as this is authoritarianism increases, resistance to doubt, lower complexity of thought, all of these things we see culturally, right? We see them go like, oh, you can't be gay, you got to be fucking straight, and you got to have 2 kids, and you got to pick a fence, and you got to like work for the man, and you have to be a patriot, and you can't ever say anything bad about anything. You got to, we're going to be racist. Like, I don't know. There's just like so many things that are wrong with these people, and it's like kind of cultural, not in an atheist way even. It's like a cultural fucking disease where you can like you can say this about any like major like bad thought thing, but like, I mean, conservative Christianity is definitely at the core of our fucking issues, and it just like literally infects your culture if you don't talk about it. Go. I put the 2.5 kids on the picket fence so the neighbors know that I am to be feared and never approached. Smart. No pickles. Smart. Like Vlad the Impaler. The researchers behind this study wanted to address a critical gap in understanding how the brain lesions might affect religious belief, particularly fundamentalism. Quote, my primary interest is and has been mystical experience, but in the process, researching the cognitive neuroscience of mystical experience, I came across brain network associations with religious fundamentalism. No way. Studying corresponding author Michael Ferguson. I also thought the worship thing was weird. I don't come from a worship family, so it was pretty weird. Oh, they talk about the study groups. To explore whether damage to the specific brain networks could influence the likelihood of holding religious fundamentalist beliefs, the researchers used a method called lesion network mapping, which we read about. The first group consisted of 106 male Vietnam War veterans who had sustained traumatic brain injuries during combat. These men, aged between 53 and 75 at the time of the brain imaging, were part of a long-term study conducted with the National Institute of Health. The second group included 84 patients from rural Iowa who had experienced brain injuries from various cases such as strokes, surgical resections, and traumatic head injuries. This second group was more diverse in terms of gender and had a broader range of injury cases. Both groups completed a scale designed to measure religious fundamentalism, which asked participants to respond to statements reflecting rigid and inerrant religious beliefs, such as the view that they are only one true religion or that certain religious teachings were absolutely correct and unchangeable. The strength and reproducibility of the signal between psychological self-report measures religious fundamentalism and the functional networks we identified in the brain surprised me. It increased confidence in the results. So, I mean, obviously these people are working in reverse on this one, but like, I would not be surprised whatsoever. The personal beliefs of the author span a broad continuum from adherence of religious faith throughout agnosticism to atheism. Yeah. I'm religious and I constantly ask questions about things I don't understand because I strive to understand. I mean, sure. I mean, I bet you do in a lot of ways. I find that there are questions that you, as a religious believer, would have a very hard time talking about. But I would be happy to. For real, it is cultural. I think about our whole society's gross opinion of homeless people, for example. Yeah, this is a learned behavior. Projecting anyone in this country makes about people who are struggling. And then I remember all the pastors who just hate vomit from the pulpit, poison and vile projected onto literally anyone without Jesus, and it makes sense. You claim to be curious, but do you question your own faith? Yeah, exactly. I mean, like, are you religious? You said you're religious, so are you Christian? Dark horse? Yes, what do you believe? I love talking about this. Okay, so here's the thing. You say you're deeply curious, but I mean, I feel like the vibe that you have, because we're talking about this subject, is one that you are uncomfortable, and so you're a little defensive and you're a little negative instead of actually being curious about your religious beliefs. You feel me? Like, it's not, I don't think you are actually just regular curious. I think you're like, oh wait, that's a personal thing I have, and I'm upset about this. But God's not real. So it doesn't come across as curiosity from you, Dark Horse 1990. It comes across as defensiveness. But I would love to talk to you about your religious belief because I am not religious. Because I have questions that if you think you're actually curious about, that I would love to talk about. Because lots of people here have deconstructed before. I've helped many people out of their religion. But I would also just like, even if you don't leave your religion, I would like to talk about you, to you about why you are religious. Because I think it's interesting. You think you're a smart guy and you sound like one. You're part of Gnome Pickles group, and I like Gnome Pickles. So you're ostensibly a leftist, I would assume. Pro-queer, all the good things. So we agree on most things, I assume. We wouldn't even have to argue about anything. The more we learn about genetics, the more it suggests that it's plastic and change based around external factors. It would make sense that we experience more and more trauma without actually healing, leads to more intense religious beliefs in society. Yeah, I mean, we're seeing a decrease in religious belief in society, but yes, I mean, we saw an increase for a while as well, prior. Because, like, yeah, I mean, the hurt people thing, but like, we not only share trauma, but I mean, you know, you share genetic information in your DNA, and I think we can agree that things are hereditary, and if you can inherit something like alcoholism or the predilection towards it, both my parents are alcoholic. If I had a kid, I'm not an alcoholic. Would that kid be alcoholic necessarily? Would they have the thing? Because I don't know, because I don't engage in the behavior, so epigenetics. Right, and so there's like, how much do we pass down actually? But it's not just like 100% genetic, right? Like, obviously, the reinforcement, the really big reinforcement, I think, is definitely the nurture, which is involving, you know, religious fundamentalist parents. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised to find that we transfer brain trauma to our kids if, you know, it's something that we developed like that. And so it would be harder for someone from those places to, you know, or harder for those people to get it going. I would say Jesus was a good teacher, but I don't believe he was divine. So a deist? I don't rule out a creator and intelligent design, but I wouldn't claim to understand the motivations and thoughts of such a being or system. So you're an agnostic deist? But like, so to me, that looks like God of the gaps. It looks like that you have said, okay, Christianity isn't for me. the ideas of Jesus aren't true, or the idea of the character of Jesus in the Bible isn't true. The divinity, like, you believe in the fucking old Earth creation or young Earth creation, or you believe in fucking like the Big Bang and shit. So yeah, it seems like God of the gaps. Seems like you just don't know enough about the answers of like who created the universe, and so you think that God is a good answer for that. But I think that's a more complex answer to the question of who created the universe. Because then I ask who creates God, and you go, well, God just has always existed, I guess. And then I say, well, why can't the universe have been like that? And then you don't really have an answer, because me either. But I'd love to have a conversation about this topic, because I think if you can already get to the point where you're like, okay, Jesus had some bad teachings or good teachings, so I like him, or like, I don't know. What's that? Is that religious? Are you Christian? It sounds like you were culturally Christian. It doesn't sound like there's a reason to believe the thing. My psychiatrist and psychologist did both mention that trauma that mothers experience during pregnancy can affect the child's nervous system. I haven't read that through. Isn't there good and bad in everyone, potentially? Wow, that's deep, man. So anyway, the character of Jesus is a political figure during like a revolutionary Judea when they're trying to have a religious reformation against the like far right-wing Pharisees and the occupying Roman government. It's like written as a literary character. Even for the time, it was considered literary. That's why it took 100 years for people to like take it on as a religion. So like to say that there's credence in the God myth because some guys talked about it is weird, I think. So I don't know why a curious guy like you, Dark Horse 1990, would think that, the evidence that we have found that doesn't corroborate the God claim at all, I don't know why you would just consider God an option then. So that's where I'm interested. Why do you consider the supernatural elements to be reasonable as far as something that you can believe, So when you call yourself curious, that's why me and my chat were like, are you though? Because I feel like a curious person would have already found these answers. I mean, you 1990, you're 34 years old, and you haven't figured out that there isn't God yet? You know what I'm saying? And I don't mean to be like patronizing, but like I feel like you're patronizing me when you say you're curious. Personally, I want to speak down to anti-LGBT. So you're using it for street cred? I mean, I don't care if you call yourself a Christian. It's just wrong. It's just a wrong thing to believe. Like you can tolerate my opinion of that for however long you want. I don't care. But like it's just wrong. It's just an old cultural belief from Judean times, 2,000 fucking year old opinion that's like not even opinion, 2,000 year old story somebody told to try to get political differences happening in their time by using pop culture, which was these mystery religions, using pop culture to make a political change. And it worked, by the way. It took 100 years, but it worked. Like, it's obviously a human construct. These things are not like, the reason that you or anybody else gives credence to Christianity is the same reason that like, someone in Norse Viking gave credence to a Saturn. It's because their culture was telling him it was true. And so I don't know how any self-respecting person can be religious. I understand that it's not your fault if you're religious typically because you were taught it, right? So it's like something you have to unlearn. And we just learned that, and we know, right? We know that this fucks up your neuroplasticity and it fucks up the way that you process information. It fucks up the way that you process logic. It's just, it's not 100% a religious person's fault, but it's like, I know nothing about religious theology or history, which is why I don't say much when we talk about it. That's okay. It's not, you don't even have to know history or any of the theologians or any of that shit to just be like, well, what's the evidence for reality? I didn't go to fucking theocrat school. I took one theology. I took the Bible as history in college. I took some. I went to school for history, but like I took Western civilization courses and all sorts of shit. But like beyond that, I'm a self-taught atheist or whatever. Like they didn't teach me fucking anti-apologetics. I just heard these fucking people say like, "Oh, the universe is fine-tuned." It's like explain a black hole. Explain antimatter. Tell me why I can choke. Why would God make my butthole the bottom of my mouth? I don't know. Why do I start butthole first when I develop in the womb? That's true, by the way. Not to mention the atheist Bible study. Yeah, I've done a bit of that. Why do we make women die during childbirth? Well, that's explained in the Bible, of course, because of Eve's sin. Anyway, so Dark Horse 1990, I don't know if you're still here. I may be talking to a fucking wall at this point, but you went pretty quiet. I would love to have an actual conversation with you, like on Discord, on stream about this. I'm super interested in the topic. I'd be delighted. Why did God make it so that we can breathe from our butts? We can breathe from our butts? All the way up into our lungs? I don't know.